What's going on, Collectibles friends? I am on the road. I'm hiding in a back room to get away from my family. Just kidding, sort of. To make this video, I know I'm late compared to the other 2,700 channels that already got the response video out to the CGC response that we did see, and so I am a little bit late, but I've got a couple of little nuggets that I think could be maybe a little bit different than some of the other stuff that is out there. So thank you very much for joining. If you are new here and you do like what you hear, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as I will continue to bring out these types of videos as well as just collectibles, newsy type stuff as we move into the new year. All right, this was really cool. I saw this, what was this now, or yesterday or the day before yesterday, I believe. CGC responds officially, and I'm going to give a good, bad,
call me a crybaby, you can say that,
and kind of the ugly at the end. So we're going to talk about the good part of this, the bad part of this, and then there's going to be a part that collectors probably don't want to hear, and I'm going to save that for the end. So if you want the juicy nugget, it's going to be at the very end of this video. So the good part of this is the response was robust. Kudos to CGC for doing a great job on the response. And it was kind of one of those things, it's like, are they going to respond? Are they going to respond? And then they actually responded and gave more information than I actually thought that they would. And so let's dive into that a little bit, just kind of talk through some of the basics here. So the one thing on the first part of it, they do acknowledge, yes, we have a scam. And then they also, upon initial review, this is important, upon our initial review, we believe that the incident affects a few hundred books. This leaves the door open for them to say, hey, look, this is our initial review. After further research, we have actually found that there's more. Or maybe they'll say, hey, actually, good news, there's less. But I think just based on kind of the research that was done, it's not a shock to many people that it would be a few hundred books or few hundred books or more that were affected by this. So they did address it, and they kind of put a number around it. At least they give some sort of a general idea. They didn't downplay the severity of what it is. A few hundred books is significant. It's absolutely significant. The second part that was very important, and again, there was kind of a wonder as who's going to pay out to the victim, so to speak, for this. Is it going to be eBay? Is it going to be CGC? Is it who's going to help kind of make it right for those that might have gotten in on one of these weird books? And so they put here, if you purchased one of the books that this individual tampered with, we will ensure that you are appropriately compensated for losses from our failures and our services. And so this will be dissected probably in the months to come as to, what is it going to look like as far as what does appropriately compensated mean? And maybe everyone is extremely happy with how they're appropriately compensated. Maybe there's some that are like, hey, I feel like they gave me half the value. And also there might just be people that complain a complaint. That's kind of the way the world turns. But it's good on CGC to at least say like, hey, look, we're going to make this right for people. So you have to give them credit. You have to give them credit for that. Absolutely. They also said here, leading PI service and outside counsel to conduct a comprehensive review of this incident and our processes to help ensure the individual is held accountable. That's a big thing too, because if you think about it, to the comic book collector community, this is significant. This could affect a few hundred collectors, maybe more, and it has downstream effects. What third-party grading brings to the table is consumer confidence. When they're spending a lot of money on a book, they like the fact that, hey, look, okay, great, experts looked at this thing and it looks like it's an 8.0 or it's authentic or it's not restored. These are all very important things that have to be hashed out. And again, if we go back, but before there was third-party grading, it was a lot of take my word for it, bro, and everybody got absolutely hammered, and it was way worse than what we are seeing right here. This was basically like the wild, wild west times 100. So we absolutely 1,000% need third-party grading to have a healthy ecosystem in the comic book space, in the comic book collecting space. I know there's people who are going to disagree with that, and they're going to say, hey, we don't need this. This is trash. They're just taking your money. Well, that's fine if you want to operate like that. No one's making anyone buy anything. But for those that are looking especially for, and I'm going to call them investor grade books, just the stuff that's way more rare, the stuff that just is expensive based on the scarcity, you need assurances. It's like with anything else. You need, you would go to a third-party expert, whether you call that a grading company, where you call it an appraiser, whatever it is, you need somebody to be able to verify what you're looking at. The other part I assume here that they're talking about as well is just looking at their internal processes. And they did say we've already improved our internal processes. And it was clear that there was an issue with the reholdering program. That's the Trojan horse that got in and was able to make this happen. So I'm sure they've completely switched out how they're going to handle reholdering, and there's probably a whole separate process and a different way of doing things. It's okay. I think it's perfectly fine that they're not exactly spelling out, here's how we're going to do this, so that scammers are obviously watching this as well. So I think it's totally fine that they did not do that. And then of course they've got kind of a contact for if you know somebody or you were affected by fraud, please contact us here. All fantastic. I thought that this part was really good. So what's the bad news? The first part of the bad news is that the scam is a reality. I think for a lot of people, and maybe I'm ignorant to naive to a certain extent, this was a shock, to see that this sort of thing could happen. And I know a lot of people say like, you're a naive idiot, that's fine. But I didn't think that this would be possible the way that it was done. So we now figured out, yes, it is possible. But the worst part of the bad, and this is going to lead into the what collectors don't want to hear, is there's another video that surfaced that showed another collector / I believe a dealer was showing how you can open a CGC slab, take the book out, put the book back in, and secure it without really knowing that it was ever opened. And it looked pretty easy. There was a few tools that were used, and he wasn't doing it to like how to teach to how to scam. It was more of like how flimsy, how fragile are these cases, and just trying to see, what was possible. It wasn't done in bad faith at all. It's done in good faith, trying to figure out kind of what is what. But what that video showed me that's even more scary here is this is beyond a reholdering problem. To me, this tells me CGC has to have a new case. And actually, I just think, if you're a comic book grading company, we need a more sophisticated case for security purposes. Now, the part that collectors are not going to want to hear about this is we are in a culture, and not just in comic books, but in collectibles as a whole, where people want to crack, they want to clean, and then they want to resubmit. They want to press and clean it, resubmit it, and try to get a grade bump, get a grade bump. Well, if it is really easy to crack, if it's really easy to just kind of move these books in and out, that kind of opens doors. And so one way to really eliminate this problem is to have a tamper-free slab that has a high security slab that has different features on it, to where if it is opened, if it is tampered with, if it is cracked, there is some sort of a tell, to CGC, and they are able to decipher what is what with it. And so I think that we have to move more towards a more sophisticated case. It would probably need to be more expensive. And I think that collectors that have expensive books would be happy to pay it. I would be one of those. If you're buying a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 book, and it costs an extra $20 or $25 for a slab on a more expensive book, but it is a no BS slab. And maybe this is just something for more high-end books. Maybe for a $200 book, maybe they go with kind of the usual deal and they just make some internal tweaks. But when it reaches a certain threshold for price point, or for certain books, depending on, I'm not sure exactly how you figure out that part, like which book should be in this high security slab. But there has to be this high security slab. I think that's really where kind of the R&D money, needs to go into figuring this part out. Because again, as a whole, as a market, as an alternative asset class, because once you get into Batman, Superman 1s, high grade Silver Age books, etc., we are getting into investable dollars. When you're spending $10,000 in a book, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, some maybe even into the seven figures, this thing needs to be living in a high security slab. And I think, again, this is something, in hindsight, this might be something where actually in the future we're looking back and it's almost like, you know what? I'm glad that this was a disaster, but I'm glad that it did happen because it made us improve the processes, but also improve the slabs to where at least offer kind of a different security slab option to people, to where if they do have high-end stuff, they do have stuff like, hey, look, I don't want this thing broken, or if it does get broken, then we know about it. You can then send it back to CGC. If something happens to it, you can then send it back to CGC, and they're the ones that can handle it to put it all back together again. Because the other part is I've shipped and received CGC slabs in shipping where it gets chipped, it gets dinged. Those slabs are, they're not, crazy fragile, but semi-fragile, I would say. If you drop one on the ground, you can crack it. It's semi-fragile there. And I think that we need something a little bit more robust in the future. So again, that goes against, though, a little bit of the culture now of cracking, resubmitting, trying to get a higher grade, press and clean it, and all of that. But I guess my question is to the viewer, would you rather have a high security slab that maybe you can't crack it, or CGC would be aware that you cracked it or tried to crack it, or do you want to have what we have now, to where it's possible that they could be opened? I don't know, and I guess maybe there's going to be differing opinions on this, but this is kind of the conclusion that I drew. Again, just my opinion. Some people are going to say, you're an idiot. We need to be able to crack and press and clean and be able to resubmit. And that's fine. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But for me, this spells a certainty that for me personally, if I'm going to buy a $20,000 comic book at some stage, my most expensive book is a $3,500 book. So I'm not in the $20,000 range, but not out of the realm of possibility for me to move money around and go and get an AF-15. Would I buy an AF-15 in today's climate? I'm not sure. And I think a lot of, outside money, that is looking at getting into a certain book like that, when you're spending some pretty significant money, they might say, you know what, I need some more security on that thing. I just need to feel better about it. And so again, I think that this is going to be a good thing in the long run for third-party grading companies of all types, because I think that it shows, hey, look, this is a marker. This is a need. We need a higher security slab. All right, guys, that's all I've got today. Thank you very much for joining me. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.